Hello everyone, welcome back to this exciting episode of our investment notes. It's been a whole week since I last met Brother Shen. I hope you all can hear and understand what I said clearly. Let's dive into today's discussion and explore some valuable insights together. Brother Shen, are you asking me?
Yes, you asked me. Can I ask you something? It's all very clear to me.
Very good, very good, very good. Well, if you, the audience, have any questions or if you hear any sound problems in the live broadcast, you can leave a message on the message board at any time. Well, I have already discussed this topic in detail with some of the audience members in the group today. In this episode, our primary focus will likely center on the important issue of tariffs, since we delved into this matter during our last episode when we were doing the show alongside you. It's a crucial topic that deserves further exploration. After observing the behavior closely, you might find it necessary to wait and see for a little while before making any decisions. Avoid rushing into a purchase or jumping to conclusions. How can you be sure when a food festival is happening? I recall discussing it in relation to Liberation Day. Let's see what my dear friend will have to say about it. Well, it seems like everyone has already witnessed it. As anticipated, tariffs were raised on numerous countries, creating a situation where, following the Qingming festival, it felt as if everyone was dutifully going to pay homage to their ancestors. It was quite a predetermined outcome.
Haha, isn't it said to worship the mountain? Eating roasted pork is a common practice when visiting graves.
However, I honestly don't have any solid idea. I have been closely watching this line move all the way. I talked to a few of my friends and said, wow, the index might genuinely reach 3,000 points today. Oh, wow, this is truly a historic moment. It's an incredible 3,041 and I got the date absolutely right. Oh, we are absolutely thrilled. It's quite rare in life that you can witness the Hang Seng Index so many times in a short period. Even if you mention it, it truly feels like a remarkable record, doesn't it? I decided to record it because I vividly remember that the total number of records was approximately 2,070. It was indeed a good and comprehensive set. Everyone is welcome to discuss it. Now let's take a closer look at the trend of the Hang Seng Index for today. In fact, there appears to be a slight upward trend developing, which is promising. Today, the Hang Seng Index closed at 20,527 points, rising slightly above the notable 20,000 point mark. Well, it initially rose significantly by 299 points. However, during the course of the day, it experienced a temporary decline at one point. At the start of today's trading session, it actually surged by more than 600 points, indicating a strong rebound. Currently, though, it has retraced about one-third of that gain, which translates to roughly 300 points, rather than half of the initial rise.
Order half or half. 300 is enough. Just pay the bill for 300. Do you have any opinion?
We can talk about it slowly. Let's listen to Brother Xin. Regarding the current trend of our Hang Seng Index and the issue of tariffs, does it really have such a big impact?
It's the channel we're discussing, It's, no, I really think the most important thing to remember is do not estimate it now and absolutely do not chase it right now. The risk involved in chasing it is extremely high, especially because we need to analyze historical data. You really should look at the historical trends and statistics. First of all, we don't particularly favor this channel. Instead, we always prioritize examining the facts and the actual numbers that are available to us for informed decision making. The second is some technical indicators. Technical indicators can tell you the market sentiment and what channels are doing. As for Hong Kong stocks, I usually don't pay much attention to VIX because VIX is more volatile because Hong Kong stocks are not like casinos. VRX is calculated based on some volatility. It appears that the overall market depth for options in the Hong Kong stock market is insufficient. Therefore, investing in VRX may not be a wise decision. Well, I like the calculation that is just look at these traditional indicators. Look at the RSI. Now let's talk about the RSI calculated by the line. For me, it's 27, 27, 27. It's around 1027. The 27th day is currently in the oversold market zone. Is it because it is oversold? I will post it immediately, but I dare not say it. But if you look back at the previous times when the index reached the oversold zone, in fact, the index has bottomed out in the short term. Well, first of all, it's January this year, so I'll fill in 30 seats. If you look back to January of last year, you will see that it was above the significant level of 30 once again. In fact, last year exhibited very sharp fluctuations in the market. Notably, the Hang Seng Index has not been able to rise above the critical threshold of 30 since it initially crossed that mark last year. If you examine the month prior to that, in August 2023, you will observe that it crossed the level of 30 once more, indicating ongoing volatility. In both instances, the indexes experienced a short-term rebound, recovering quickly after the initial decline. Well, I'm not telling you to try to catch a rebound at this time, but first of all, you see that the position is already overvalued. If you overvalue it several times in the past, in fact, the index rarely overvalues. This situation will happen every day for stocks that are overvalued again. So I think this first one is worth referring to. Secondly, if you take a closer look at the 250-day line index, it is quite clear that it is beginning to offer some solid support. However, the accuracy of this indicator is not particularly high. What you are observing are various moving averages that are influencing the trends. To accurately judge trends, it's important to analyze the crossover between short-term and long-term lines while understanding the situation first. The 10-day line has crossed above the 50-day line, forming a small golden cross. While the current situation is not particularly ideal in the medium term, it does appear that in the short term, if you are utilizing some fitness tools and engaging in options or futures operations, you have likely estimated your positions effectively before. It seems that my friends and I have accurately projected a few significant periods ahead, so we are genuinely happy with our assessments and optimistic about the potential outcomes. Please eat it. If you choose to engage in these actions, you must eat it thoroughly. You don't need to consume 1/3 of it, but at least 2/3 should suffice. So I'm in a dilemma. I want to know whether the stock can rebound or not. This is because it has been falling from a high position. Usually there are some people who are very picky, and your Central Hygiene Investment Committee has clearly stated that it is to maintain stability. Many of your stocks are blue chips, and many people think that the current market conditions are a special period, so it is not surprising that you have some rebounds. But you have to control the stakes well and don't bet too high. If you don't bet all at once, you'll be in big trouble.
Well, okay, I'll provide you with a brief preview on the message board. Bonnie was eager to ask you for your thoughts on Amazon in relation to the US stock market. However, now let's shift our focus to the US stock market and discuss how Amazon is performing within the Hong Kong stock market context. Because you, Brother Sen, have already spoken, so don't rush to sell immediately. In fact, there is no way to operate today. Everyone is just watching the show because it seems that you have no power to see the rebound at 3,000 points, or you don't know how the market situation is going now. Well, as for the US stock market, when I examined the futures data on June 2nd, it was showing only around 1,300 points. But it experienced a significant rise at the very beginning of trading. In fact, there was discussion regarding the potential easing of restrictions or possibly postponing the tariff measures altogether. But ultimately, none of these actions were implemented in the end. Well, the problem is that if you don't rush to sell your assets right now, especially given that the market is heavily discussing these changes, particularly since Trump has mentioned that the tariffs on imports from China may potentially be increased by 50%, it could significantly impact your investments. If you persist in being like him, there could potentially be some form of revenge. Now, let's discuss the situation with Hong Kong stocks. It seems that China's rescue measures are not uncommon. For example, the mainland has talked about some rescue measures in the past 2 days, such as interest rate cuts and reserve requirement ratio cuts, as well as the entry of national team funds into the market. Central Huijin Investment, China Chengtong Investment, and China Investment Corporation, 3 major state-owned enterprise groups, have announced plans to increase their holdings in Chinese stock assets. It seems that many individuals believe that their investments of real money in the market serve to protect it, and they feel that such actions demonstrate a level of confidence in its stability. How do you personally interpret or respond to this statement? That is to say, if the central government really intervenes, can our stock market really withstand the issue of tariffs?
In this lecture, I would like to emphasize that if you analyze the situation from the perspective of diversified investment strategies, when you observe the government actively entering the market, it is advisable for you to actually consider following their lead in your investment decisions. But because you don't have a diversified investment in this way, the government, to put it more generally, goes to court, and the court is like a taxpayer. That is, you have to pay taxes and you have to suppress the stock market. Certainly, here's the expanded text. While this statement is intended to be somewhat humorous, it is worth noting that if the government were to increase its investments and holdings in the stock market, there is a theoretical possibility that this could lead to a minor rebound or recovery in stock prices in the short term. Well, in the long run, whether the investment market will follow your call still depends on the fundamental factors. The fundamental factors are not the price to earnings ratio of individual companies. How many PVs does he have? It's not just a matter of calculating these things, but looking at the overall environment. Recently, we saw that the United States is imposing or announcing the imposition of tariffs. It should be April 2 today and April 3 tomorrow. April 3 will take effect. Before this particular event occurred, or perhaps simultaneously, China also implemented corresponding tariffs in response to the situation at hand. Hey, you are speaking American language. You are really trying to be confrontational. If you are trying to be confrontational, we have nothing to discuss. We can't discuss anything. But the point is, it's not that you charge 30 or 4 and I add 50 more. It's not a show hand kind of game. The point is that the United States is different from you, completely different from you. If it's different from you, there's a difference. Look at China, the European Union, Canada, Japan, etc. Wait, their attitude appears to be quite different from what we expected. Won't Canada retaliate in response? The countermeasure to address the issue is to impose tariffs on their imported cars. And this one, the EU has actually also taken some so-called countermeasures, which is also tariffs, but at least they have shown their intention and there is something to talk about. The United States actually has nothing to say to me. I don't want to talk to you about the implementation and I don't want to see it at all. Hey, one important aspect to consider is the trade deficit, but China is quite different from other countries. China asserts that they don't instigate conflict. They claim they are not afraid of facing challenges, yet they also emphasize that they do not instigate trouble. To clarify, they maintain that while they do not create problems, they also stand firm and show no fear when confronted with difficulties. In brief, I will impose tariffs on you equal to the amount you impose on us, and I will evaluate how this strategy plays out in practice. However, to begin with, the reality is that you find yourself in a position where there is absolutely no way to accomplish this task, primarily because everyone is already aware of the specific details involved. Furthermore, in light of these circumstances, it is evident that everyone lacks a concrete plan to follow. You feel entirely powerless and immobilized. You have arranged the table, yet you don't even bother to lift the tablecloth from beneath the table, leaving everything as it is without making any effort to change the situation. You're not impressive, and there's nothing to complain about. If you take a closer look at other countries around the world, they have their chips on the table alongside you, but they are simply moving forward with their plans. There is still room for discussion. In China, if you don't have room for discussion, the overall environment will actually affect some import and export companies. Foreign trade constitutes a significant one-third of China's overall GDP. While imposing tariffs does not necessarily mean that this entire one-third will disappear, it is important to understand that various interconnected economic relationships stemming from that trade will also experience substantial adverse effects. So in the medium to long term, simply having central huijin or other government funds entering the market is not enough to keep the stock market going up.
Well, if there is another popular saying, it seems that the Hong Kong dollar has some signs of strengthening, which also seems to be the case with some capital inflows. Because the problem is that we all know that our domestic state-owned enterprises actually hold a lot of US dollars and some US dollar bonds. So people here are talking about it, saying that if the economy gets stronger now, will the channels transfer these funds to Hong Kong to protect Hong Kong?
This represents an incredibly significant opportunity. If your goal is to protect the market or bolster overall confidence in it, then it is advisable not to invest in A shares. A shares cannot be freely given to others or sold to foreign investors. Instead, you are limited to acquiring large quantities of them or selling them without hesitation. If you have nothing to sell, then you cannot sell anything. On the other hand, Hong Kong stocks are like ATMs. If you want to leave, you can just withdraw the money and leave. To successfully position yourself as a buyer or to effectively increase your investment holdings, it is essential to stabilize market confidence and accomplish this specifically within the Hong Kong stock market. So what you said about the economy becoming stronger due to this is actually quite reasonable.
Well, because it has just been pointed out that various parties in China have brought up a concept referred to as against, which signifies a form of resistance measure or action being taken in response to certain situations or pressures. Well, that's because the United States has already imposed 20% tariffs on China in all aspects. The initial number was increased to 34, with discussions now suggesting a potential rise to 50. In early March, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and its US Embassy discussed the implications if the US were to escalate tensions, questioning whether such actions would lead to a tariff war or a more severe conflict. Trade wars or any kind of conflict are battles that China is prepared to engage in. What does the warfare truly entail? The experience varies based on the unique characteristics and resilience of the nation involved in the fight. However, it is crucial to note that should such a conflict arise, you will certainly understand its implications by observing the content shared in these videos. It turns out that the American people surprisingly don't really know. Tariffs significantly impact my daily life and finances. I wasn't aware, based on some videos I watched, that these tariffs would ultimately be passed on to consumers like me, affecting the prices we pay for various products and services. Oh, I completely understand now. It turns out that their knowledge in this particular area is not really extensive enough to discuss much. Well, I think if you truly are from China, then it's quite an interesting perspective you have. Well, if you really raise the tariffs to 104%, they will indeed have the opportunity to respond accordingly, because such a significant increase will greatly affect the pricing and availability of American rice wine, sorghum, and various other agricultural products. Additionally, this move would also impose a complete prohibition on the importation of American poultry, meaning that chicken and other types of meat would no longer be allowed entry into the Chinese market. Well, let's talk about suspending the fentanyl cooperation between China and the United States. As for fentanyl, I actually want to ask Brother Shen, hey, in fact, it's good as long as the United States is not angry about this. then we must not allow China to transport fentanyl to the United States for channels to manufacture similar drugs. On the one hand, isn't it possible that this is exactly what the United States wants? That's exactly the kind of thing I might want to share with you about again someday. Well, the fourth important point to consider is that there will be several countermeasures implemented in specific areas, particularly concerning the clothing industry and the trade practices related to clothing. They also banned the import of American movies, which means if you are Chinese and want to watch Marvel movies, you probably won't be able to. This is the detailed information I received. So 6, just take a close look at nature. Look at nature, it's incredibly unique and truly impressive overall.
I'll follow you. How about this? Neha is currently recognized as the most profitable animated movie worldwide. Don't forget this remarkable achievement in cinematic history. Yes. Tie it securely. In addition, take a look at nature and tie it.
But even if you start chasing Marvel, you may suddenly turn your attention to chasing nature. It is possible that the United States will tell China at any moment that Chinese movies cannot be allowed to come to the United States. Baidu's broadcast has sparked a reaction and everyone appears to be in opposition.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, if you take a moment to look at the top 10 box office films in the United States, are there any Chinese movies included among them? In fact, it's all up to you to change it. If you change it, you will still watch the top 10 box office movies in China. There are also some Marvel movies, but it should be very fast. If you shoot more Nature 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, it should be scary, and you will be occupied and sucked away, yes. Yes, if you are discussing the various cultural industries or certain types of consumer goods, and if you yourself are gradually making your way to Europe by air, then in reality, it doesn't have much significance. Yes, life in Hong Kong will continue to maintain a balanced and stable rhythm, allowing residents to go about their daily routines without major disruptions. Don't you think that the iPhone you use is different from the iPhone you buy in the United States and different from the iPhone you buy in Japan or Singapore? This is a matter of division of the world. Yes, actually, there is nothing we can do about it, but haha. No, sorry. You keep going, keep going. It's not just this one. What I mean is that for multinational companies like Apple, they will naturally know how to make products and supply chains that cater to the market. So you don't have to worry too much about this, but everyone is like a frog in boiling water, not realizing that the world I am in is different from the one I came into. But actually, you don't know why the Americans like you can be so ignorant and not know that these tariffs will affect their own price changes, but it is a fact. Yeah, I don't know about it because usually they don't pay anything, they just pay consumption tax. Even if you are in the United States or many other countries, you may not even know they paid consumption tax because the consumption tax rate is not written on your receipt. Of course, some countries are included in the list, while others, such as Singapore, are noted separately for clarity. In Hong Kong, residents do not pay consumption tax, which seems to be misunderstood. It's important for people to be aware of this tax situation in their region, but don't we all know that there truly is such a thing as that? It seems there is truly no way forward. Regardless, the world will slowly but surely adapt to these changes. I don't think there is any real need to worry too much about it. But I would like to pose the same question regarding the implications of your proposed consumption tax, which I apologize for mistakenly referring to as a tariff. Will this policy potentially lead to a very serious inflationary situation, or could it even contribute to a state of stagflation? I believe that no one has a clear answer to this complex issue, and that is precisely why I feel compelled to elaborate on it and seek further clarification. In fact, it's just a conversation between some businessmen. In fact, they will naturally adjust their supply chain, but it may not be solved in a short time. But the channels have been tightening all the way. It seems that Apple's previous generation of mobile phones were made in India. Does India have the equipment? Even if you are talking about 10 or 10 generations ago, the previous generation was 15, 10 generations ago when you went to iPhone 5. In fact, all their mobile phones were not made entirely in China. They were all assembled in China. How do you understand that? Their supply chains are actually in different places around the world. The lens from the old Han might indeed originate from Malaysia, but ultimately it all depends on how these manufacturers strategically adjust their distribution channels and adapt to changing market demands and conditions.
Hey Bonnie, the comment section has made it very clear that there is a term which is the new era form of warfare. Nowadays, most of the warfare is actually economic warfare. That is, economic warfare is better than fighting with real guns and bullets. Hey, by the way, I also wanted to ask you the same thing that was mentioned just now. What is it? As for fentanyl, I'm not sure how much you know about it, brother. In fact, if you claim that China has a hand in this situation, then it truly seems like they are trying to undermine the United States. My dear friend, we've already stated clearly that we will not permit you to import this dangerous substance into our country because you feel too nervous to voice your complaint.
Meh? Original given purpose. It's under strict control and very much regulated, so they simply smuggled it in anyway. The United States accuses China of lacking strategic intelligence and being excessively generous in initiating various types of aggressive attacks. Hey there, what's the latest Chinese trend now? Because I didn't read the news you just reported, his attitude now is, hey, you collect customs duties from me, but I let the drug dealers transport methamphetamine to you, yes. Eat me, we want to eat it from all directions by land, sea, and air. The objective effect is that the United States will actually exclude all Chinese. If you hold a Chinese passport, they will not let you in after asking you a lot of questions, and they will not even approve your visa. Hey, but now I just want to get this objective result.
Now, he doesn't talk about how to get a Trump Gold Card or how many millions of dollars you have in assets, but he says you can apply for it. It's nothing more than that you may be Chinese or anyone else, and anyone in the world can apply. Do you happen to know if he possesses a Trump Gold Card?
I know, yes. I know this. But the problem is they are available in Hong Kong and Singapore. I want tens of millions more in Singapore. It seems like going to the United States costs around a few dollars, is that right? You seemed unaware of the cost of 3 balls in US dollars. Hey, you actually possess an impressive fortune of $3 billion. With such wealth, you certainly wouldn't risk carrying fentanyl white powder or any illegal drugs hidden on your thighs while casually walking into a police station. That would seem quite absurd, wouldn't it? Only someone in a dire financial situation might resort to such reckless behavior. Therefore, I believe you shouldn't have any significant worries at all. You can confidently inform any country about your immense wealth and status without fear. The Golden Passport program is exceptionally popular and highly sought after. It does not matter what your nationality is, whether you are from Ethiopia, Somalia, Serbia, or China, the opportunity is open to everyone. If you possess sufficient financial resources, you will be welcomed with open arms wherever you choose to go.
Yes, you are right. Hey, the message board of my channel has been informing all our members to go shopping in Japan early this morning. What insights do you have now? Actually, when it comes to shopping, I really see the important issue of tariffs affecting prices. I read the news that people in the United States are buying up Chinese products because of the tariffs. They are saying that they can't buy Chinese TVs, even those made in China.
Additionally, regarding Audi, I have heard that a number of its vehicles are currently being held at the port. Is it essential to determine when to pay the customs duties associated with these vehicles? Furthermore, should a first-come, first-served delivery policy be implemented in this situation? It appears that may not be necessary, but since the payments have already been made, the obligation to pay the duties should still be fulfilled by the respective parties involved. The customs processes should be cleared promptly because the goods are currently detained at the port. The necessary customs procedures must be completed after arriving at the shore. It's me, it's really me, it's truly me, it's definitely me. I often hear this kind of thing being said. So this response goes back to the actual question, but the impact is very large. Well, the various aspects involved are not just for us to simply look at, hey, let me take a closer look at the various products, specifically those I purchased at the airport. For instance, many items are labeled as made in China, like the Sambu brand products and others. It's important to note that it's not solely about taste. A significant number of their products originate from China, meaning they will inevitably be impacted by tariffs to some extent. Additionally, the recent US tariff measures involve multiple countries extending beyond just China. However, both China and the US are steadfastly seeking a viable solution to the ongoing trade disputes.
In fact, it seems that this is the only country that can survive this crisis. Britain and China can collaborate only through this channel.
The European Union indeed has established a range of countermeasures in various forms, and these measures are generally quite strict. However, regarding the media outlets we reached out to, I believe that the majority of their content was presented in Chinese. Therefore, you and I are more focused on understanding and anticipating China's potential reaction to these developments. But in fact, many different countries around the world, especially developed countries, have also reacted very strongly.
Hey, the audience mentioned that if you have purchased clothes consistently for the past 5 years or so, your fashion sense is quite keen. What I currently do is, no, I still choose to shop on Pinduoduo to buy my clothes because Pinduoduo actually has little impact on my overall shopping habits. Most items are made in China and the prices tend to be fairly similar for us. I consider myself a good person who appreciates value while shopping.
But if we talk about clothes, made in China is a high-end thing. What is it? Any explanation? How do you typically go about understanding things? Certainly, here's an expanded version of the original text. While the overall cost of production is higher, the quality control measures implemented are significantly better. When it comes to shirts, you might not find pure American-made options readily available, but there are indeed 100% cotton shirts that are produced in the USA. But it is made in the United States and basically has nothing to do with it. It must have been produced by some third world country. Of course, there are a few that are made in Japan, but basically a pair of jeans cost here several thousand Hong Kong dollars. Here, I want to emphasize that it's not merely about everyday clothing items. It also includes formal suits. The fabrics used for these suits are typically sourced from Europe, which means they are of significantly higher quality and craftsmanship. In contrast, the casual clothes you typically wear, such as t-shirts and jeans, do not possess the same level of quality and durability as those premium suits do. Many products are made in China, but production there can be costly. Advanced items may still start in China due to its expensive supply chain. Well, typically, the majority of these products are sourced from countries like Bangladesh, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Indonesia. Even if you happen to be a sneaker manufacturer representing a Danish brand, it is notable that very few of your products are actually made in China. In fact, businesses began relocating their supply chains out of China more than 10 years ago, seeking other manufacturing options. Hey there, the three of those items are actually primarily manufactured in Vietnam. So I'm wondering, what exactly are you talking about? It seems like there's a misunderstanding here. Pinduoduo is a platform where you can purchase various products. If an item is made in China, the quality is generally expected to be good.
Well, actually, it's not a big deal because they are pretty affordable. The price is sufficiently low that it doesn't seem to have any noticeable impact on the overall tariff, allowing me to avoid making any special arrangements when purchasing clothes. However, you just pointed out an interesting aspect, and I personally wanted to inquire further as you just discussed what exists within us. In reality, there are indeed very few, remarkably few individuals to discover or encounter. As we were examining the complex tariff issue together, we were genuinely discussing ways to enhance the overall strength of the United States, aiming to make it not only robust but also to restore its previous strength and economic power once more. Many individuals are expressing the opinion that the current issue concerning tariffs is not merely about specific trade differences or trade discrepancies. Rather, to a significant extent, it also involves the strategic goal of relocating the manufacturing industry back to the United States. This shift aims to bolster domestic production capabilities and reduce the overall manufacturing workforce in the United States, thereby impacting the economy and job market in various ways. Or perhaps the working population is unable to achieve such a high income solely through promotions, and these financial matters might be managed independently. For instance, as you previously mentioned, the revenue generated from an iPhone could reach as much as 2,000 units sold. It might be possible to distribute these units strategically across various locations to maximize profit. Disruption in the supply chain leads to clear and immediate consequences. I read some of the information and found that to some extent they want to move all those manufacturing plants and things like that back to the United States and gather them together. Then they can control this matter and people will buy from the United States rather than the United States buying from others.
Yes, I am currently eating and carefully counting my calories, yes.
Uh-huh.
Because tariffs represent a significant cost, I made the strategic decision to relocate the production line to Xinwei for greater efficiency and savings. So I managed to save perhaps half of the original price, but if you consider the 50% tariff return, then I effectively only saved about 75% in a way that's not immediately obvious. Back and forth, does it really matter to me? Oh no, I have already saved 75% of the cost, so you can just do as you say. You can just set up the production line as you like. Well, this is something that each factory should consider on their own. Listen closely to your words. An iPhone actually costs you more than 2,000 entry passes to events. If you are discussing more sophisticated instruments or even some large-scale machinery, then in fact their production lines and the various components involved are significantly more numerous. As a result, these production lines tend to be longer and wider to accommodate the complexity of the manufacturing process. The more you eat, the more you need to calculate.
The Chinese side has stated that if they intend to assist the stock market, it will be inundated with capital, meaning it will be flooded with significant amounts of money. However, the chief executive of Hong Kong has taken a stand and voiced concerns about this situation. Hong Kong is recognized as a highly outward-looking international free port, which plays a crucial role in global trade and finance. The balance between support for the stock market and maintaining Hong Kong's unique status is essential for its continued prosperity and stability. In reality, everyone is well aware that Hong Kong primarily thrives on its dynamic import and export activities. The text highlights its status as a global logistics hub. The pressing issue at hand is that Hong Kong might implement several strategic measures to effectively address this situation, and it is crucial that it responds to the tariff measures without delay to mitigate any potential economic impact. I hope I can resist it. I want to see what you think. Okay, that's the first one. He said that we must fully grasp the opportunities of our country's development and actively integrate into the overall development of the country, because he said that China is actually the world's second largest economy. There is a market with a population of 1.4 billion. It is actually a lot to eat 1.4 billion people. No one can deny it. Take the Greater Bay Area as an example. The per capita output is worth 40,000 US dollars. Well, Hong Kong should increase its efforts to expand domestic sales to the mainland and attract more overseas companies. But the problem is that overseas companies don't seem to be able to do this now. So I don't know. Okay, the number of new additions is small. Yes.
Eating and trading are always the same. They lack complementarity, that's correct. The essence of trade itself lies in the fact that you need people to possess items that are not readily available in your location, enabling you to offer them money to purchase these goods or provide items in exchange. To me, this situation is similar to how China struggles with not having enough soybeans and corn as they need it to adequately feed their pigs. Actually, if you are not hungry enough, go find Brazil, go find America, go in. You need flour, but you don't have enough, go find Canada. Well, let's consider a different perspective. China currently possesses the most advanced and mature supply chain for electric vehicles in the world, which is unmatched by other regions. Consequently, this means that many countries rely on exports from China. As the chief executive, it is my responsibility to ensure that the strategies and measures you recommend are not only effective but also beneficial for our overall operations and objectives. The pressing question we face is how exactly do we go about achieving this? How do we effectively seize the opportunities that arise? Do people truly need to purchase your products or services? If they find value in them, then by all means, they should buy them. If not, it's pointless for you to insist otherwise. Even if you invite me over, it holds no significance.
Well, for example, since it has 7 parts, we can talk about them one by one. So, aha. In addition, he said that to strengthen international exchanges and cooperation, we must actively deepen regional cooperation. Well, this particular situation might require some further explanation, as everyone is aware that Hong Kong is geographically very close to Saudi Arabia. Additionally, various other countries suggest that some family offices are planning to relocate there, but there is actually a considerable amount of news that has not yet been made publicly available. However, for instance, during a 7-program live broadcast that we conducted with Evergrande previously, they mentioned that they have established cooperation with Saudi Arabia. Therefore, my question is it truly feasible or acceptable to enter into certain investment agreements with these countries while also striving to become a member of the RCEP?
It is definitely okay in the direction. The question is whether we have the cultural background to grasp this thing. Can we do it, right? The question at hand is quite interesting. You mentioned the Hang Seng Index, which indeed has previously engaged in similar actions, specifically selling Hong Kong stocks through its platform. However, this particular direction seems to be quite the opposite of past strategies. If we pursue this approach, my intention would be to attract investments from some Middle Eastern funds. In that case, I could certainly reach out to some of my contacts from the Middle Eastern region and invite them to come over for discussions. Consider the idea of establishing a family office for managing wealth. However, this notion might be somewhat unrealistic, don't you think? Since you hail from a specific location, what makes people select Hong Kong as the primary regional city for their initial entry? To the south of Hong Kong, there are 2 of the world's largest and most populous Muslim countries, Indonesia and Malaysia. The Middle East, with its rich cultural and religious heritage, is relatively close to us, at least in terms of shared beliefs and traditions. In contrast, Hong Kong does not possess such deep-rooted historical connections to these cultures, making life for individuals from these regions here somewhat challenging and less comfortable than it might be in their home countries. So when you fully embrace becoming this person, you must make the deliberate choice to undertake a task you are not skilled at in any way. You have no issue with exploring a market, but you absolutely have to approach it in this specific manner.
Well, if you genuinely want to engage in conversation like this, it's actually quite difficult to make a definitive call because there are, in fact, numerous supporting facilities available in Hong Kong. However, the one positive aspect about Hong Kong is that it is indeed a nationally governed city.
Well, when compared to various Chinese cities, I absolutely agree with this statement. But if you ask whether it is a good international city, you can compare it with some truly international cities. In fact, you can only look at the side of the car. But it is indeed true. Whether it is true or not remains a significant improvement. Ultimately, this is a matter of opinion. But I think you have some objective things to look at. Look at the stock market. The amount of funds you attract is getting more and more in the past. There were really a lot of foreign capital in the past. Now it seems that everyone is very afraid of foreign capital and thinks that foreign capital will leave after making your money. Examine the current state of the stock market. Everyone is aware of what you depend on for insights. We often express this in a rather blunt manner. Whatever you rely on, you will truly notice the outcome.
Well, in addition, all the internationalized people say that Hong Kong doesn't count. But the third point is that Hong Kong needs to speed up the transformation and upgrading of its industries and develop a high value-added innovative economic model. Yes, it's fundamentally about the evolving digital trade economy. We must effectively manage the entire supply chain and excel in implementing the Belt and Road Initiative for better connectivity. In fact, it's primarily centered around China. They do not merely extend their reach to the rest of the world. Instead, it fundamentally revolves around the Belt and Road Initiative and the ongoing goals of national development.
It's a sentence that is said all the time. If you can do it yourself in mainland China, what can you do? What?
There is a point that I have some hesitation about, which is to vigorously promote international financial cooperation. It is about developing international financial status and exploring new sources and channels of funds. Hey, he has recently visited several emerging markets, actively looking for potential business partners. That's it. In just 2 years, the number of overseas recognized stock exchanges of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange has increased by 1/3 to 18 countries around the world. But the problem is that we need to vigorously promote international financial cooperation. As you said just now, foreign capital has actually been pouring into the Hong Kong stock market in the past, but now it is flowing out. How can we vigorously promote our international financial cooperation? There is no problem with that.
So what do you want to go back to that is called international? If you go back to international, it is Cambodia, Bangladesh, or maybe Somalia. But in fact, there is no problem with this, as these are all China's so-called old friends. As long as you do not possess any Chinese capital, you can consider yourself international. That's perfectly fine. You should definitely pursue internationalization, as there should not be any issues or complications at all.
Yeah, so it's all okay actually. It really depends on which specific country they are from at this point in time. If you say something like this, haha, it's a joke. Okay, in addition to that, it's fundamentally all about this crucial point. It means that multiple countries must actively diversify their risks. The goal is to attract foreign corporate funds to invest and establish a presence in Hong Kong. One of the reasons is that because of the tariff war, global funds will be reallocated. I have been emphasizing that we now have one country, two systems. We can provide a safe and stable environment. It is convenient for hedging assets in Hong Kong, which is a very advantageous thing. We have a very good advantage. It is definitely an advantage for certain funds. Even a rotten boat has 3 pounds of nails, and your stock market is not dead. Regardless of the circumstances, you simply continue to mess things up. I'm still here, not gone yet. I believe that someday I will rise again and sing once more.
Oh, it's me speaking. Do you really think I have a meaningful response? I strongly believe we should support Hong Kong stocks.
Well, in terms of Hong Kong stocks, we are actually almost the same. We can all turn to the US stock market because there are actually a lot of different news in the US stock market. As everyone knows, the trade war has actually triggered a global stock market crash. Actually, the reason why I talked to Brother Sen at the beginning was over 1,700 points, but now it's coming back to the previous day. It's urgent. Hey dear, we said that we would consider imposing some new tariffs on countries other than China, and that the implementation would be suspended for 90 days. So at that time, this news would cause the Dow Jones to rebound and rise by 300 points. I remember it rose by about 800 points. But the problem is that after Hachiko, he said this fake news is not true. In other words, if it continues, it will not be passed on for 90 days. So my stomach has been falling all the way. In addition to my previous points, I would like to have another discussion with Brother Shen today regarding the current stock situation of Apple. Let's focus on Apple first, as we've touched upon the implications of tariff trade recently. However, I apologize for the confusion. I mistakenly opened the wrong file. It's actually AAPL that we need to examine. Hey, Apple's stock price experienced a significant decline of 7.32% yesterday. At one point, it dropped below the crucial price point of $175, but it has since recovered to $181. In fact, as of last Friday, the cumulative decline over the past several weeks has reached a staggering 19%, resulting in an overall market value loss of approximately $640 billion. What are your thoughts on the US dollar? Since we've just discussed it, it's relevant to the current Apple issue at hand. Certainly. Here's the expanded version of your original text. Well, in fact, if you consider the tariff issue and examine the detailed reports discussing its financial implications, the overall cost of an iPhone is likely to increase significantly and rapidly, potentially rising by as much as 50%. What does this mean for consumers? It is possible that the retail price of a 1 TB iPhone 16 Pro Max could experience an increase of around 10,000, which would certainly impact many buyers' decisions and perceptions regarding the value of this premium smartphone model. 7 is approximately 18,000 for each piece.
Actually, how much money is it now?
Now, it seems that a leather collar represents a leather head priced at 20,000. Yes, 100,000 equates to a 10,000 head. It's like even if the price isn't exactly 180,000, purchasing a phone for 10,000 yuan is already considered quite affordable, don't you think? Well, even if they have indeed switched their production operations to India, it is important to note that although India initially stated it would not impose any additional tariffs on those products, they have actually made adjustments to the tariffs in practice. The question is, do you genuinely believe that relocating to India could serve as an effective solution to this particular problem we are facing? This innovative system has the potential to significantly reduce their cost increase by as much as half. However, there remains the persistent issue of tariffs that could complicate the overall savings.
You can eat and talk seriously, don't count the comments. If you make something in the United States for 100, and you go to China to make it, it might be $50.50, but China might charge you a tariff of $200. I don't know how many there are, so just move them back to the United States or India. The production cost in India may be only $50. However, they will impose a steep 50% tariff on the product, resulting in a price increase of $25, bringing the total cost to $75. Consequently, this situation necessitates that you pay 25% less for local production alternatives. Thus, you find yourself with no viable option but to produce it locally. Your tariff policy is particularly astute because you apply tariffs consistently across various countries, yet you strategically choose not to impose them everywhere. In essence, your ultimate goal is to achieve a favorable trade surplus with your country, enhancing your economic standing on the global stage. The key concern is that everyone breaks even, avoiding mention of a trade deficit, which highlights its importance. You have changed in noticeable ways. In this particular situation, everyone is counting on a variety of factors. For merchants, my profit margins have decreased, but simultaneously, I may not be able to provide the benefits you, the consumers, expect. Should I consider transferring part of the cost to you? This decision ultimately depends on the current market conditions. To be honest, you cannot live without a mobile phone in today's digital age. It has become an essential tool for communication and daily activities. You always have to buy something expensive. For example, 20 years ago, a mobile phone that cost 10,000 yuan or 10,000 yuan was priced at a sky-high price, but now it is usually close to 10,000 yuan. If you spend more than 6,000 yuan, even iPhones seem to be more than 6,000 yuan, except for the 16E. Hey, I've noticed that you have changed quite a bit. We all have these essential needs, but it seems your replacement cycle might be happening more frequently than before. Yay. I always emphasize that the most crucial factor for Apple is to strengthen its user value and enhance its ecosystem. It's akin to my situation. I am living my life with you now, but everything I utilize daily comes from Apple, making it impossible for me to consider leaving the brand behind. I have to save a little money every month because I really want to keep the pictures you sent me. I can't afford to buy a box for daily necessities to store them all. I need to save these special movies as well. All of these factors are crucial because of their significant impact on Apple's overall revenue. In fact, a substantial 25% of each of Apple's financial statements can be attributed to this specific type of revenue, making it the most vital aspect.
It's either a cow or perhaps another type of Surface, yes, specifically the Apple Surface device. Well, if I express this opinion now, I strongly believe that many viewers or a significant number of people will share the same sentiment. Apple's stock has experienced a considerable decline recently. So how should we approach this situation? How should we analyze it moving forward? To put it succinctly, it currently stands at a price-to-earnings ratio of 28 times. What are my thoughts on this situation at this moment?
If you want to benchmark yourself, the one you like the most is Xiaomi. Xiaomi copied them and formed a business model. Later, when you made cars, you couldn't copy them. You could only copy the second company. Yes, but their overall business model and market share are essentially derived from Apple's successful strategies. The problem lies in the fact that their S-shaped Surface products simply cannot compete on the same level. Consequently, their relative cash ratio is not as impressive or exaggerated as that of Apple, highlighting a significant disparity in financial performance. Xiaomi serves as a benchmark in the stock market, but if given the choice, I would definitely choose Apple. Now, let me ask you this. If I simply observe the chart or its trend, and I notice it has fallen significantly, should I really make a fuss? Actually, I think there is nothing wrong with it, but I think the risk is still great in the short to medium term. That is, if you enter the market, you want to try to rebound. You want to try some short term, that is, short term is called a cutback. Hey, if you're considering investing, I would recommend choosing ETFs instead of individual stocks like Apple. This is because ETFs provide broader exposure and diversification. Additionally, stocks like Apple may be affected by tariffs, which can impact their performance and lead to more price volatility. Market sentiment remains unchanged. This fact is not important, but the market sentiment is important. If the stock price really falls, or at least the volatility is large, the risk is large if the volatility is large. If you have to do this, what is the best weapon to deal with risks? It's about funds. Do you have sufficient funds? Do you have the ability to hold on to goods? If not, I will be restless, but I think Apple is not a stock suitable for everyone to bet on a rebound at this time, or in fact, some large stocks are not suitable either.
Recently, I have been delving into various pieces of information regarding market trends. To be honest, the most significant outflows from US stocks observed tonight were primarily from exchange-traded funds, ETFs, particularly well-known ones like SPY. Yes, it is quite certain that this will occur. Indeed, when the market experiences a downturn, there will undoubtedly be substantial outflows from these ETFs.
Which Hong Kong stock today has the highest capital inflow and transaction volume? It's ETF again, ETF series Prosperity Fund. It's Prosperity Fund. Alternate.
Yes, there are actually many US stock ETFs that are related to bear stocks or technology stocks. Regarding the ETF, it appears that we have previously discussed it in detail. Let's revisit the topic and allow Bonnie to examine it closely. Oh, and by the way, Bonnie actually asked Brother Shen as soon as the show started, I want to ask you if your grandma is happy. If we discuss the tariff issue, will it significantly affect Amazon's business operations? Because it is widely recognized that online shopping significantly impacts various aspects of the economy and consumer behavior. If you increase taxes and tariffs, it will actually increase the price in all aspects. But I'm currently looking at what's new and noteworthy about Amazon recently. The latest exciting news is that Amazon is planning to significantly upgrade its AI model for improved performance. We can create an engaging 2-minute multi-camera video that captures various angles and perspectives. There is an innovative system called Novel View, which will soon receive an exciting new upgrade enhancing its capabilities. Tada, AI Tada! Furthermore, it will soon sign a significant agreement with Airbus to deliver enhanced in-flight connectivity services to passengers. The recent buzz in the industry is all about tada, tada, tada. Have you been following the latest developments regarding Amazon recently? Their activities have been quite intriguing and noteworthy. Because a long time ago, you observed that only Amazon surprisingly had no available products for sale.
It's business as usual.
Oh, your tariffs genuinely have a significant impact on them, and of course, they absolutely do. As a relatively unique online shopping platform, many of the products you offer are certainly related to being made in China. While your tariffs might not necessarily lead to an increase in their overall costs, they can still influence pricing structures and consumer behavior in various ways. However, you may experience a slight decrease in income, which could significantly impact the overall performance of your business. Well, this must have had an impact. However, for his other business sectors, including his thriving cloud business and growing involvement in AI-related technologies, he has been advancing and pushing forward with remarkable speed and determination. I don't believe this is a significant problem, however, it aligns with what you mentioned. If your sole intention is to compete for a rebound, the reality is that if you seek out this type of stock right now, you will likely encounter stocks that are consistently marked with 7 red indicators. In reality, I perceive that the associated risks are quite elevated, so it's essential to remain patient and steady in your approach. However, if you choose to hold on to these types of shares for an extended period, I genuinely am not overly concerned about your opinions. The reality is that the world cannot function or thrive without technology. In the economic landscape, your technological innovations will consistently stand out as leaders. Nevertheless, at this moment, it seems that you are consistently falling behind in keeping pace with advancements. For them, there will certainly be a period of short-term gloom and sadness, and unfortunately, there is nothing we can do to change that situation. However, in the long run, I believe you are exaggerating a bit. Human beings inherently need one another to drive progress. We must rely on technology for advancements, so I'm not overly concerned about the future.
Oh, it's essentially the same concept. There's another stock that I would like to spend some time discussing with you because this particular one is something I have previously talked about in detail with several of my friends. And it's TSMC, officially known as Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, which plays a crucial role in the semiconductor industry. Will he laugh if you eat some? They have previously invested a significant amount of money in the United States, so now they want to demonstrate their sincerity and commitment to the country. Their goal is to clearly show that they are genuinely interested in establishing a factory or undertaking various business operations within the United States. By making these investments, they aim to create a positive impression, fostering a sense of friendship and partnership that will be recognized and appreciated by their American counterparts. You know, as soon as we arrived here at this location, we had already mentioned discussing a specific tariff. Taiwan will subsequently be subjected to a significant tariff of as much as 32% on its exports. But the problem is that the United States is actually Taiwan's second largest export market. I recently read a detailed Bloomberg report that indicated a concerning forecast. It stated that if Taiwan were to implement this specific tariff measure, Taiwan's exports to the United States could be significantly reduced by an alarming 63%. This decline would represent approximately 3.8% of the local GDP income, which could have serious implications for the Taiwanese economy. Actually, some people say that this may be one of the biggest crises in Taiwan's economy in recent decades. You have spent your money, but people still add a lot of taxes on you. How do you perceive the situation? Perhaps TSMC and several other companies currently have some exports intended for servers and computers, which means they are in fact among the first to experience and bear the significant impact of the financial losses.
Oh no, I'll give you a rough estimate based on the number of items. You will see that I will definitely do it immediately. If these measures are implemented, there will be nothing to pass on to consumers. This is what you are specifically talking about, right? Taiwan heavily relies on the United States for various aspects, and in addition, Taiwan itself is significantly dependent on its own electricity supply to function effectively. Therefore, the United States stands as its most crucial and important market for trade and support. Actually, there is no way to save you. You are completely controlled by others. There is no way, but you still need to use your things. Don't you need a computer? What? You don't need a chip?
No, the real foundry that is best suited for you is definitely TSMC.
I have consistently expressed my lack of interest in industrial stocks. Over the past year, I indicated that if I were to invest, I would focus on ordering these stocks and their subsidiaries. Currently, the stock prices of these major companies are quite low, but reflecting back to a year ago, they had little to offer and were unable to change their situation. So there is nothing to worry about. Yes, the world is just business as usual. However, the short-term impact is still likely to be serious.
However, upon reflecting on the situation, it has indeed dropped down to a significant support level. The last low was recorded at 132 on August 2nd, which was 24 years ago. The market is currently at a low point.
Are you specifically referring to a desktop computer system?
It is a desktop computer.
The cost is 147, 147. The cost now it is 147, yes. Yes, let me compare it with last year's position. Look at this chart first. Looking at this chart, it should have reached a low of around $130 a year ago. Yes, absolutely. I understand there's still a considerable distance to cover, but you asked me if I hadn't yet arrived and therefore couldn't purchase it. However, I believe I should prioritize buying it first. You and I can never adopt the mindset of only purchasing at the absolute lowest price, while simultaneously being unable to locate it. The highest price reflects the worries you have today. You aren't considering options like Alibaba or Xiaomi, which leads to unnecessary worry that ultimately proves to be meaningless. When you realize that you have transformed into a powerful individual, you begin to accumulate significant wealth, only to eventually flee once more. When you notice the market starting to stabilize and show signs of recovery, you begin to buy, feeling free to do whatever you want. However, if you aim to achieve a successful rebound, it is essential to consider a broader range of indicators beyond just individual Hong Kong stocks.
Gary suggests we can leverage the situation to collaborate with the United States and replace domestic options. I currently possess only a limited amount of this particular item, but I am wondering how I can effectively replace it with domestic alternatives. I lack familiarity with Taiwan's manufacturing industry and its capabilities, which leaves me uncertain about how it compares to our local options and how the replacement process would function.
The supply chain is a reality, despite globalization creating highly non-overlapping networks. Hey, Apple is planning to relocate its entire production line to India. In fact, this information comes from a leaked article that we obtained. Just take a moment to see what they have done. The iPhone 15 has faced numerous issues caused by several people. Yes, indeed, there is a comparison regarding quality. Some individuals mentioned that the quality can be inconsistent over time, and based on my own personal experience, I can confirm that while his phone performs well, it doesn't always operate as smoothly as one might expect. Compared with its previous 14 series and compared with its modern 16 series, there is some distance between these series. There are obviously some differences. However, this sensation can be described as a lemon feeling. In fact, if you take a closer look, you can observe that the supply chain and the entire manufacturing process of various electronic consumer products, as well as electric vehicles produced in China, are remarkably efficient and comprehensive. It is essential to acknowledge that there is no other country on this planet that can match this level of excellence, at least not at this moment in time. Replace it. Especially in the case of electric vehicles, EVs, the entire production process involves multiple interconnected steps, resulting in high efficiency, excellent quality, and superior craftsmanship. Well, there is no way. Yes, it's primarily about Taiwan, but there truly is no viable alternative to Taiwan. The scale of Taiwan's manufacturing is relatively small, which means it can only concentrate on producing certain high-tech and specialized products. But if the situation is reversed, which high-tech manufacturing industry have you replaced in Taiwan? In fact, it is simply not possible for you to possess the most advanced, sophisticated, and intricately detailed chips like these. The reality is that you are merely a company that can only manufacture them through TSMC. Currently, other companies lack the capability to produce such high-quality chips, and their attempts to do so have resulted in poor yields that do not meet industry standards. Even if a competitor is stronger than Samsung, it's important to note that Samsung Electronics does not achieve the same high yield rate with its desktop computers. Therefore, this difference is significant. In the context of today's globalization, all aspects of your business operations are actually highly non-overlapping and unique.
When we discuss this particular type of stock, we must mention Nvidia. Previously, its price was so prohibitively high that many people felt they couldn't afford to invest in it. However, the stock has since fallen below the $100 mark. That said, the current pre-market price is now hovering around the $100 threshold, indicating potential interest from investors. But let's return to examine the closing price on that particular day, which was 97.6. This is significant because now the entire world is actively engaging in advancements in artificial intelligence, right? Even if you want to impose various tariffs, it really doesn't make a difference what type of tariffs you decide to implement or if you genuinely aspire to manufacture chips, right? Regardless of the amount of money you are offered, you are obligated to pay it. So, to be completely honest with you, let me ask this. For Nativia, do you believe that the impact of this particular tariff is significant? Or in fact, now it has finally fallen below the significant threshold of 100. Can everyone find a reliable place to check it out?
Well, it is not the first choice. I will say yes, but I hold it myself. However, it is not the first choice because of the current macro situation. What is the current macro situation? The United States, along with the entire world, is poised to emerge prominently on the global stage. Some countries are eager to align themselves with it, while others hesitate, and some are ready to offer their backing. However, the pivotal question remains, can China truly lend its support? If China chooses to do so, just imagine the potential responses from the United States and the ensuing geopolitical dynamics. Oh, you and I can hold on together. Sorry, you just pretended I didn't say that. Will the US follow suit? No, yes. The barriers between the two countries will become more and more solid and will become longer and longer. That is, they will become higher and higher in the long run. In the past, the United States might have chosen to purchase it, specifically referring to NVIDIA. Do you know why certain chips ultimately ended up in the hands of China? Emily, I have no idea. Oh, you're unsure too? Well, it's really up to them. But they are all aware that in certain countries, you may indeed take on a significant transit role in the transportation process. But it's true. If you want to chase, you won't be able to catch up. If you want to check, you won't be able to check. As your orgasm builds to greater heights and intensifies, the United States will inevitably respond by becoming stricter and imposing increasingly stringent restrictions on a range of products that it deems to be the most advanced and high-tech, not limited to just semiconductor chips. Essentially, all of the most sophisticated technologies and innovations are being actively prevented from flowing into China's hands. In this particular situation, AMD will bear the brunt of the impact, and its business operations will definitely see a noticeable decrease in turnover and revenue. So everyone is worried that it will affect its stock price. So please don't expect this outcome, NVIDIA. It is actually quite challenging to regain 30% or 40% of your profit within just half a year. For instance, it is often wise to invest in red stocks or technology stocks. However, they may not necessarily be my top choice.
Hey there, if you had the chance to choose first, what option would you select? That's your own personal opinion.
If possible, I would definitely put some content up here and discuss it in detail, but I would always prioritize investing in ETFs first. First of all, ETFs should serve as a foundational investment. And then, for example, if you wish to invest in several sectors, you might consider choosing a strong player like Google.
Hey, much like Amazon's approach, I believe the live broadcast engagement rate will surpass the MVDR. While it's not necessarily limited to the 7th, our time today is constrained. We can certainly wait for your return next week, and I'll be sure to ask you in person if there is anything else to consider beyond the 7 reds. Sure, perhaps you could watch it or everyone could study it together. Today's time is almost here and we are eagerly anticipating it. Thank you all for taking the time to visit the message board and engage in conversations with us. Next week, our program will be shifted back to Wednesday, returning to the previous schedule that many of you have come to enjoy and expect. Now we have the opportunity to enjoy time for the next exciting episode. If you are interested in continuing the conversation and sharing your thoughts, please feel free to leave a message on the comment board. A special thank you to Brother Gao Shen for today's discussion. We look forward to seeing you all next week when we return to Hong Kong. Okay, bye!